Hi, I'm Prontius. Welcome to Mythic Makings. I've been thinking about the types of videos that I want to make, and I actually had the idea when talking with my good friend Daria, who is the Shadow Rose Oracle. I'll link her channel down in the description box because she's fantastic. She's great. We were discussing what kind of videos I might want to make, and we had this idea of doing topic-based videos where instead of trying to just like educate and just talk at a camera, I had the idea to talk about topics but have conversations with the gods, spirits, and ancestors through divination. So we're going to see how it goes. I'm kind of excited for it. So I wanted to start just with sovereignty, just because it's a straightforward topic, and I've been curious about how the Morrigan has been feeling about the way that we've been interacting with the topic of sovereignty in the modern day lately. Because the way that she expresses herself in the role of like sovereignty goddesses is kind of different compared to a lot of the other sovereignty goddesses in ancient myth. She's less like the one who grants the sovereignty usually, and more of like the one who enforces like the structures around kingship and rulership and like sovereignty over the land and right relationship. And she's more like the one who punishes, punishes or holds rulers and um, like kingship situations to account in these greater situations. So I thought about pulling cards. I'm going to pull from the Morrigan Oracle cards deck by Morpheus Ravenna and Hannah Storyteller. It's one of my favorite decks to speak with the Morrigan because it's a varied deck that has a lot of depth to it that isn't just like really obvious stuff. It's more subjective in helpful ways, I think. So I think I'm gonna pull a card and let's see what the Morrigan wants us to start with and discuss, and then we'll just go from there. This is going to be one of those organic conversations. Kind of excited about it. Ooh. This one? No, this one. Ooh, okay. So we got Mischance. This card always stands out to me because of the way that it's like really dynamic. We've got this bowl and this blade that are just kind of falling as if something awkward happened. Somebody dropped it. Somebody made a mistake. And I pulled it reversed, but I'm showing it to you upright. Whenever I pull reversals, it's not like necessarily the opposite or bad necessarily. Sometimes it's just like bringing attention to it or trying to, like, it could be me, it could be somebody else, it could be like, this isn't happening, this is happening, sort of thing. So in this case, in the topic of sovereignty, I heard I heard her say not to be worried about making mistakes in sovereignty and like being flexible with the definition of it, because I think that sovereignty has shifted quite a lot in definition from ancient times to now. Like that we're a much more individualistic society. That doesn't mean we've completely abandoned the idea of like sovereignty with the land and right relationship and reciprocity, but we do have such an individualistic society, and the people that are drawn to the Morrigan are usually ones that have had their sovereignty most suppressed. Um, I think it's pretty common for people in the Morrigan community to have some sort of neurodivergence, and I'm going to make a video about that at some point, or have PTSD or CPTSD or developmental trauma, these sorts of things. And usually in those sorts of situations, you've got these relational dynamics in which you are suppressing your own needs, your own sovereignty in order to survive within whatever system that you're living in, whether it's a family system, a communal system, relationships with friends, whatever. There are these like systems of homeostasis. Homeostasis is this idea that like systems don't like to change. There's like a certain equilibrium, and pushing out of that homeostasis starts to change the system, and it's really hard to push those boundaries outward. So if you've got this idea of like not wanting to, or if you've got this situation where you're worried about like the particulars of sovereignty and how to express them, it's okay to move forward and make mistakes and let the definition change and grow over time. Sometimes you'll drop. Sometimes you'll trip, you'll drop something, you'll make a mistake, and it's okay. You get to move forward. That's sovereignty too. I'm going to pull another card because I'm feeling... Oh, she wants me to pull the bottom. Ooh, wilderness. Okay. Oh, and... Ooh. This deck is also not very particular. It's a little gory in some ways. So the first card I pulled on the bottom of the deck was wilderness. It shows some hills with this bloodied creek or river running through the corner of it. And trigger warning. This one shows a raven and a corpse. So the slain. So I think there's this idea of like being lost in the wilderness, like feeling lost. And in these emotional waters that we've got, there's this feeling of like the result of battle, especially with the slain. Like we've been feeling in our personal sovereignty as if we're the ones that had to sacrifice in order for everybody to survive, or even just ourselves to survive through whatever it is we were going through, and we thought we had to do it. And now the Morrigan is calling us to pay attention to this like desolate emotional landscape and what it means to be like the victim of these things that have been happening, and growing from those experiences in ways that are that help you develop your sovereignty in both a personal way, which can be really difficult, trying to learn how to do those things as you're getting older. Just like neurologically speaking, neuroplasticity is always a thing, but it's always easier as a child to learn stuff like that. And I'm getting this sense of like victimhood too. Like we are victims, but you can take the victimhood too far, and there's a term called covert narcissism, um, and there's another type of narcissist that's like the one who uses their victimhood as a way to gain sympathy or empathy. It's like a sort of backwards. It's very opposite of like the grandiose narcissist. And I think to some extent, all of us have this like these tendencies to uh, really sit in our victimhood, and that's okay. I think that's normal. We need to in order to really engage and reintegrate and process these things that have happened to us that like we had no control over. But we have to be careful about taking it too far, because we can create our own barren wilderness if we're not willing to face the growth that's necessary and be willing to make mistakes along the way. Okay. I feel like I should pull one more card. So I'm gonna. Oh, it's that one. That one. Ooh. Okay. So I actually pulled Foresight, which is so interesting because it shows the washer at the ford. Which, given the fact that wilderness popped up with the bloodied creek or river, and this card being called Foresight, it's almost like you don't have to worry about the future. You don't have to worry about accounting for every possible thing that could happen, every possible mistake, because in I pulled this reversed actually, and in this, the washer at the ford is sitting here washing the. It looks like some sort of cloth of probably some slain warrior. And in the lore with the washers at the ford, they always appear to warriors before the battle, and they portend their death, essentially. And given that Foresight was reversed, I just get this feeling of like sovereignty isn't about trying to completely wall yourself off and create these boundaries that are so rigid that you can't let anything in. It's like the balance of trying to find the right amount of porous and the right amount of rigid, and that's such a hard line for us to navigate, I suppose, especially for those of us who have developmental traumas and relational traumas like that. It's almost like she's saying that personal sovereignty in this case is like part of it is ensuring that you don't use personal sovereignty as an excuse to fuel perfectionism or obsess over keeping things the way that they are, or it's like she's trying to say essentially that things are going to happen, like mistakes are going to happen. You can't control everything. There will always be things that happen in our lives that we have no control over, but we can't let those things hold us back. We have to live our lives, and part of that is letting the acceptance of those things, like accepting that those things may happen, whether we want them to or not, and choosing to move forward despite anything that could happen. And that's not to say that we would do it without protection, because even though foresight is reversed when I pulled it, the idea is like using your inner knowings and your intuition to guide you through the moment, because you know what's good for you. It may be hard. It's a difficult thing to learn your wants and needs whenever you've had developmental trauma and stuff like that. But as you begin to learn how to identify those things, it's easier to okay, I think I understand what she's saying now. Really, what she's saying. She's saying that you have to learn your wants and needs in order to be able to develop that personal sovereignty. And in doing so, you learn foresight, and you can live in the moment without having to worry so much about like these possible mischances, because the more that you know about yourself, what you know is like best for your nervous system, your body, your spiritual life, your friendships, whatever. Like each of us has our own unique way of like living life and needs in ways that are most fulfilling to us. Learning what those things are and being intentional with them allows you to live in the moment, because you can hold porous boundaries and be able to self-reflect in that exact moment without having to like overly plan for things. So you don't have to worry as much about the possibility of like disaster striking. So interesting. Okay, this was kind of fun. I'm gonna go ahead and end there. Because this is starting to get longer than I expected it to be. I think maybe in the future I'll probably add a little structure besides just pulling cards, and maybe give a little more information about the topic at hand before I go into my tirades about whatever. And I'll probably do more editing, but right now I'm doing the bare minimum. I've got a lot going on in my life. I'm just going to be posting videos. I'm not going to worry about the ums. I'm not going to worry about the editing too much. We're just posting. She told me to just not worry about the perfectionism, literally, just now too. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.